My name is Clay Williams, and this is People Talks, presented by Canal Pursuit Productions. The idea behind People Talks is that everyone has a story, and everyone's story has value. People Talks is a combination of people with lived experience and people working in the mental health and fitness fields. This week's speaker is Meagan Cumming. Meagan is a registered psychotherapist and the CEO of the Kemptville Stress Relief Centre. Meagan has a master's degree in Counselling and Spirituality from St. Paul University and is also a 500-hour trained yoga teacher, allowing her to bring a holistic approach to her therapeutic work. Meagan is also a survivor of sexual assaults and domestic violence, and believes her lived experience allows her to truly empathize with her clients and model that there is a life after trauma. Welcome to People Talks.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad we were able to connect. So I met, let me just adjust this a little bit. We met in Kemptville in late August as I was on my way to Ottawa for the Canal Pursuit run. And I knew when we chatted that I'd have to get in touch with you again and have you on People Talks. The work that you're doing there sounds amazing and really fills a gap that our Canadian mental health care system has. So we've got a system that's kind of segmented. And anyway, I really appreciate that you've made the time to come and talk with us. So what is the Kemptville Stress Relief Centre?
Yeah. So the Kemptville Stress Relief Centre is a team of psychotherapists and social workers who are all trauma-informed with different modalities who support individuals, couples, and we also host some groups to recover from stress and trauma. So it's really important to me to ensure that we can support folks that can't afford full fee services. So we also offer free monthly community workshops around different themes, anywhere from boundary work around the holidays to self-love around Valentine's Day. Like we're often kind of having a theme for them. At the end of October, I'm doing a workshop on yoga and anxiety. So kind of walking people through their nervous system and the stress responses and the different ways that different yoga poses can support them in coming back to their baseline, whatever that looks like for them.
Wow. So there's when you talk about trauma and I just think that there's so many different sources of trauma, I think. And is there something that you see more often, or is it just kind of across the board? I'm just thinking, is there a typical client?
Well, the way that I kind of market or present myself, I invite clients who've experienced childhood abuse, sexual assault, domestic violence. So that is a lot of what I see because that's who I want to be seeing. Okay. And different nervous systems respond to trauma in different ways. So for some people, if they have an adverse experience, maybe trauma shows up for them as a lot of the fight response. So a lot of anger, acting out, really trying to push that energy outward. For other people, it shows up more like the flight mode. So they're trying to run away, they're trying to avoid things, or they're overworking by avoiding things. There's a lot of different strategies that the nervous system will use to try to use that flight mode. There's a couple other ones that we don't necessarily talk about a lot. You may not have learned about them in science class. Everyone knows about fight, flight, but less people know about freeze, which is incredibly adaptive. Imagine a deer in the headlights. It freezes because its primary predators hunt, like maybe they hunt by sight. And if they freeze, maybe the threat will go away. Now, unfortunately, that doesn't work for cars. So there are times where that's less adaptive, but freeze is a really important strategy that our body has. And then a fourth one that we really don't talk about is called fawning. So it's this idea of, if I people please or make the threat happy, then it won't want to harm me. So often I'll see things like freeze and fawn in clients that have earlier childhood experiences, because those are the only defensive responses available to young children. You can't fight or run away from your caretakers. You need them to live. So freezing, shutting down, numbing out, or trying to be the perfect little son or daughter or whatever, those are more adaptive. But those patterns can continue for into adulthood if not examined, and can really impact their lives and their abilities to advocate for themselves or really move towards the things that they want. So
Yeah,
that's a very long answer.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. I think with that description, I think it leads a little bit into your personal background, right? Can you tell us a little bit of your story? What what kind of led you to the work that you're doing, and did your background lead you to the work that you're doing?
Yeah. So I first heard about the program at St. Paul's when I was 16. It was also around the time that I discovered yoga. It was actually one of the local yoga teachers who said they were going to pursue that program, and everything just fell into place for me. I was like, that's the place I have to be. I was in, I guess 10th or 11th grade, and it was intro to anthropology, psychology, sociology. So I had just gotten into that when this program came up. I really thought it was important to integrate spirituality into the way that we support people in healing. So that's how it all came together for me, kind of academically. In terms of more of my personal background, and I'm comfortable sharing this because I already gave this speech in 2019 to the Take Back the Night people who participated. But I was first sexually assaulted by a family member when I was 13. And when I disclosed that to a good friend, she disclosed it to her parent. And the way that kind of harm against children works is parent or adults don't really have, like, adults are obligated to report. So it kind of went out of my hands at that point, and I had to report to the police in a way that wasn't particularly, how do I want to say this? There wasn't a lot of choice or autonomy involved. And also, even when I did report, nothing ended up happening to that individual. They never went to court or saw jail time or anything. So I kind of internalized this idea of like, okay, so I'm gonna bear this most difficult moment of my life and nothing's going to happen. No support is going to be received, no consequences for this person. So when I was assaulted again at 16 by someone else, I didn't report. When I was assaulted again at 18 by a different person, I didn't report. I actually had a harder time labeling that last experience as an assault. We internalize a lot of ideas of what an assault looks like. So it took some time for me to connect the dots and realize that was an assault. But so I carried a lot of that for a long time, and I didn't seek counseling until I was about 21. And then it really became clear to me how all of those things connected and how much it motivated me to do the work that I want to do. So I always knew that I wanted to come back to my community to be a therapist, because when I was here, the services weren't really here. What I needed wasn't here. So I wanted to come back to my community and be what I would have needed at that age. And so that was a big motivating force behind advocating for funding for sexual assault services in my community, in speaking at the 2019 Take Back the Night event and then organizing and leading the 2021 event. But I would definitely say that my own personal experiences have motivated me to provide the support that I knew that I needed at the time. And I really hope that I do get to be that for my clients.
Yeah, I like that. It's the right way to go from where you went when you saw the lack of consequence, lack of support, lack of you were just kind of thrown to the wolves almost, right? So one of the things you connected is hearing and spirituality, and I've talked with a couple of therapists, and we've made on People Talks, we've made the connection or asked about the mind body connection, and there's definitely a few different ways to look at that. There's this mind body connection in our healthcare system is not really there. We've got a physical healthcare system, and we've got a mental health care thing. So I think a lot of times, and it's slowly changing, right? But I think we've been kind of compartmentalized in physical and mental health. But spiritual health, our social health, are all kind of a part of our being, right? Of who we are. How do you how would you describe the importance, I guess, or the importance of spirituality in our overall health?
Yeah, it sits as very important for me. And then I have some clients who sometimes have no interest, or they've actually been harmed by spirituality, usually more specifically religion. So I think it's really important to notice that, spirituality can be a really important piece of what it means to be a human being. And it's not as important to everybody. So if it's not as important to that person that's across from me in the room, we don't have to go there. I'm not forcing them to become a yogi or anything like that. But part of what I really liked about my background in spirituality and my training was that I have a better understanding of how that can serve people, how that can harm people, and how the most important piece is what it means to them. It's one thing for me to have studied Hinduism or what it means to be a Protestant or whatever. That can give me some context, but ultimately it's about what does that mean to that person? How has that religious upbringing, or how is that strong faith, or whatever it might be for them, how does that support them, and how does that sometimes not support them, and in what ways can I help point that out to them and invite them into more of the connection that they're looking for?
Yeah, I think you made a good point. The differentiation between spirituality and religion. There's been a lot of harm done in the name of spirituality, and I think a lot of people probably have a bad impression of what that means, based on some untruths, I guess, or different perceptions, right? I remember I'm a Christian. I've been involved with my church for a while. I was head of elders for a while, and I remember telling a friend that I was going to take a yoga class at the local gym. I'd never done that before, and I'm a distance runner, and we're notoriously poor at stretching. So I thought it would help. Anyway, he warned me. Be careful in the yoga class. They'll teach you this a different spirituality, and it's kind of interesting. Forewarned, I thought it was a phys ed class, and there's definitely a spiritual component to yoga, but it's it's there wasn't anybody selling anything or trying to brainwash me, and the principles behind the energy and so on are fairly consistent across to Christianity as well. It depends on how you perceive it for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, spirituality, I think, is a little, maybe a little understated in the whole realm of holistic medicine or our whole selves. So one of the things that we found people talk about again and again is physical activity helping with anxiety and depression. Is there any part of your therapy that that deals with physical activity very much? I mean, yoga is definitely in there, right?
Yeah. Well, I usually invite people to find a way to move their body that makes sense for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like for some people, that means taking a dance class or even just a solo dance party, turn on some tunes, dance by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, that means moving their body in nature. And for other people, that means like kickboxing or something. So I invite people to connect with what works for them. And a lot of that can have to do with where their nervous system's at. Like I said, maybe if they're in fight mode, they actually need a lot of support and coming to that other side. So a restorative yoga class would be helpful for them. And if they're in freeze mode, maybe a self-defense course would support them in connecting and getting that fight response back online.
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends on the individual. And then we do move a little bit in session sometimes, like maybe we're doing a breathing exercise that has some arm movements. I might invite them into my favorite grounding tool, which is legs up the wall,
Mm-hmm.
which is exactly what it sounds like. Your back's against the floor, your legs are up the wall, and you're making a little L shape. But yeah, I'll have some sessions with clients where we're both just legs up the wall for the first 20 minutes, and we're just talking like that. Yep.
Not a lot of runners.
I have some every now and then. I'll be honest, Clay, I'm not a runner.
That's all right. That's all right. It's funny how being an avid runner, a lot of my friends are runners, and it's such a common thing in my circle that subconsciously I have this impression that it's a common thing everywhere, and it's not. I spoke with a lady who teaches mental health first aid and has been teaching it for 10 years or so, and she says she's still surprised when she talks to people who haven't heard what it is. I just heard about mental health first aid in January of this year. So we our perceptions of the world are definitely colored by the people that we surround ourselves with, right? Let's see what's going on in Kemptville. Was there a hospital or something? I remember doing some research about Kemptville, and there was some I should maybe have not even brought it up. There was some, because I don't remember what it was. There was some facility that was closed maybe 10 years ago or so.
The college, probably.
Oh, the college. That's right. Okay. Yeah, it was. It was a little bit of a sad history because it ran for quite a long time and then amalgamated with another college, and shortly after that was eventually closed, right?
Yeah. So the Kemptville College of Agricultural Technology,
right, okay,
was one of the best, in my opinion, and in other professional opinions, agricultural technology school in Ontario. Like I knew folks who would come from Northern Ontario to Kemptville to take these courses. and I'm not sure exactly what happened because I'm not associated with it and I'm not on the board or anything, but the University of Guelph decided not to continue to invest in the programs. So the community has started to kind of repurpose some of the buildings. I believe there's 4 schools on campus now.
Right.
And what's really interesting about Kemptville is we have all 5 school boards in Kemptville. So like English public, English high school, French Catholic high school, like all of the different school boards. So I'm really happy that a lot of the buildings are being repurposed and still used for learning. But it definitely is sad to see that the agricultural technology aspect is not there as much. I mean, I believe one of the French schools is a bit of a forest school, so they try to use the grounds and they're learning a lot. And I know that the municipality is doing what they can to try to preserve and reactivate some of those programs. I believe there is a trades program that they just reactivated on the campus with the intention to like support people in learning through the trades. So I hope that helps keep some of that alive. That would be really great.
Yeah, I work for a machinery manufacturer here in Kitchener, and we have a difficult time finding tradespeople. There hasn't, our education system hasn't been pushing that until the last couple of years. We've seen a lot more move in that direction. But so the Kemptville Stress Relief Centre, what do you think that looks like in the next 5 years? And that's a big global nebulous question, and it depends on current provincial and federal political leadership and will of people and so on. But what would you like it to look like in the future?
Yeah, I would like to continue to expand my team so that we have lots of people available to support folks. I would like to create subsidized counseling slots. So we do have some sliding scale things, but I think it would be really exciting to get some subsidized slots, as well as within our groups. We're looking to do more groups, workshops, trainings. Those are all in the works. And yeah, it would be lovely to expand our current space to accommodate that growth that I'm looking for. But basically just continue to serve the community in the ways that we can.
We had a little conversation before we started recording. You're really busy.
Yes.
How many people on staff there, and how big is the facility?
So currently I have 4 clinicians. One of them is on maternity leave at the moment, and we have 2 clinic rooms and a large group space and our waiting area. My ideal would be to add 2 more rooms, but that is in the 5-year plan. That's a little bit further down the road. And my team is still working virtually, so the space isn't as much of an issue right now, but I know that once we come back to in person, be a little bit of fisticuffs for that office space time.
Have you seen, speaking of working virtually, what has been the impact of the pandemic?
Yeah, it really varies. When everything kind of happened in March 2020, I had a bit of a drop in clients for a couple of weeks where they were like, oh, well, I'll just see you in a few weeks when lockdown's over. Did not go that way. So folks eventually kind of called back and they're like, okay, we need to talk. I'll do this whole weird virtual thing. And I've actually usually gotten pretty positive feedback about it. People don't have to commute. They don't have to get out of their pajamas. Their pets and their favorite tea and their soft blanket and all the things are nearby. They're already in their safe space. So it's really increased accessibility, and it's increased our reach as well. Like I have clients from quite a bit outside of Kemptville now that maybe wouldn't have wanted to drive in, but are happy to call in or video in. So I've noticed that it's really increased accessibility. on the other hand, I have some clients with trauma who have been pretty clear that they don't really want to go to those difficult places until we're back in person, and they can be fully supported in that process.
Right.
So the majority has been increased accessibility, pleasantly surprised at like how not that different it is, and happy to be able to stay in their safe space and not have to commute. Like that's been the majority of the response. And then I've had like very few responses that have been like, I don't want to do the trauma thing virtually. We'll wait till we're back in person for that.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I'm not a person who gets nonverbal communication very well. I've probably got Asperger's syndrome. I'm all logic and black and white. But I know a lot of people count on getting people's body language, right? And we miss my fingers moving as I'm clenching my fist right now, and all those little things when we're on a small screen like this, right? That can be so important for someone receiving therapy and someone who's trying to connect with the client, right?
And I just continue to be really transparent with clients about that. And I ask this question a lot. I kind of check in and say, you know, what's going on for you? And we do a little bit of a body scan, and they're like, oh, I'm moving my fingers. I'm like, do you mind bringing them up where I can see them? And then I can see the way that they're moving their fingers.
Right.
So it's actually been interesting because it invites them into the process even more. Like they're having to increase their awareness as well, which is exactly what I'm trying to do anyway.
Yeah. So you're not kind of secretly seeing that movement. You're making both of you aware of that's a thing that person's doing and a thing that you're observing, right?
Yeah. And then invite them. Yeah, and invite them to get curious. Like, okay, so we notice that you're kind of moving your hands. Is that giving us some information about where you're at right now? Like, what is that one of your cues for? Oh, that's your cue that you might be anxious. Okay. Well, what are some of your other cues that may be anxious? Like, are we getting some tightness in the chest? Are you getting butterflies in your stomach? So it really helps us get into the body even more, as much as you wouldn't think that it would, since we're through a screen. Because I have to ask even more questions to see what's happening for them. It actually invites them into the process even more.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I would have thought it would be more of a hindrance, but that's kind of cool, for sure.
There are ways to make it work for you.
yeah, nice. I like that. Has there been have you seen aside from the technology and people not being able to get in, have you seen much of overall change in, let's say, mentality or mood or that sort of thing in the last year and a half because of COVID?
Yeah, I've definitely seen an increase in folks that are feeling isolated, don't have access to their support networks, have a lot of anxiety about, you know, the pandemic and everything that's going on. Something else I've kind of noticed is it has exacerbated some of the trauma symptoms for some clients. So something that may not have been quote unquote as bad or as prevalent before has been increased by the prolonged stress. Myself and my two other colleagues, I think all of us have wait lists right now. So we have very much had an increase in demand and inquiries and had to do referrals and things like that. So I would definitely say that I've seen an impact. And I've also seen the ways that people have grown a little bit. And to be clear, I'm not trying to put a positive spin on COVID here. But because people have been challenged and they've been able to reach out, they've also been able to do some healing work that they may not have done if they hadn't been challenged.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I learned to swim when my brother pushed me off the end of the dock, right?
Right.
So there's some people that got put into deep water because of this, and had to swim to survive, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I get feedback from people sometimes like, oh my gosh, you're getting so many new clients. So many people are struggling. And I'm like, so many people are struggling and they know where to go for help.
Mm-hmm.
That's a positive.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and with no, it's kind of funny in May, I guess. When did the third wave start to kind of settle in? I guess it was May or June. And I was really upset because I hadn't heard about the second wave when we hear information about the Spanish flu, and this is a comparison, or a lot of comparisons, compare COVID-19 and the Spanish flu and how it was handled. And they didn't mention a second wave or third wave of the Spanish flu. We're in the fourth wave now. When are the waves going to stop? It's definitely frustrating, and we're thinking, well, things are gonna settle down, and I think New Brunswick is going into another lockdown, and some of the other provinces are yeah, I don't. It's we can't see I can't see an end to this right now, and that's got to be frustrating for a ton of people in a lot of different aspects, right?
Yeah. Sure. The prolonged stress, not like the uncertainty, not knowing when it's going to end, like all of those pieces definitely exacerbate the stress symptoms for sure. Yeah, and it can be really hard because like I don't have the answer.
No, and it's funny. I'm the right brain sort of guy. When someone presents a problem to me, I immediately start looking for a solution, right? That's the way my mind works, and there just isn't one for this that I can even think of. One of the frustrating things for me initially was okay, so we're in this wicked pandemic. It's going to change the world, and it has changed the world in a lot of ways. And when we come out of this, I'm a clever guy, and I'm going to find a way to be ahead of whatever bad thing comes out of it. And I don't have a clue what that is. It's frustrating that I there's just fog after this right now. I don't know. There's so many things that have changed. It's hard to say what it's going to look like in the next little while, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, we're surviving so far. We've survived through a year and a half of a pandemic that we thought was going to last for 3 or 4 months, and it's one of the things that people do is survive when they have to, right? Yeah, and planning for the future. So I'm really hopeful that that things go well for the Kemptville Stress Relief Centre, and for you. You're really busy. Take a minute to take a breath once in a while in your busy life. But I kind of know what that's like with a lot of things going myself. There's a need to get the things done, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there? I think we're just about done. I'm out of questions. Is there something that you wanted to cover or say, or some sage advice that you wanted to give all of the listeners, all 28 or so, all of the listeners, sorry, and that are tuned in, that will be tuning in?
Yeah, I'm going to check in and see if there's more that I wanted to share. I guess just reminding folks that your story can be a really powerful tool for other people's healing. And, there's this kind of assumption sometimes in mental health circles that like, oh, you're supposed to be a blank slate, right? Like you're not supposed to be a person or have a life or have this lived experience. But I actually think it's really important to have my clients know, like, I have actually been there too. I do get it. I'm not just coming at this from a really clinical standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've lived it, and I do understand what you're talking about. And I think that that's the real power behind what I'm able to offer my clients. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's my offering to all of the viewers, is to view your story as a source of your strength and a way that
Mm-hmm.
you can support other people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. If you've heard something today that that you've lived through yourself, then it's a little reassurance that that you're not alone. And likewise, your story, I think someone else can identify with and get a little comfort in knowing that there's a companion on that journey and a survivor of that journey as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.